This car exploded with a slight impact from behind, causing dozens of deaths. But what caused these explosions? And more importantly, why did Ford decide to launch such a dangerous model? The best-known story is that of Lily Gray, who was driving her Ford Pinto, when suddenly the engine cut out and a car from behind abruptly collided. Immediately, the car caught fire. Despite getting out of the car, Lily would die days later from her injuries, and her passenger, a young boy of just 13, survived, but was left with burns over 90% of his body. The case seemed to remain in the dark, but years later, that same young man would take Ford to court. I'll tell you how it happened later. This tragic event marked the beginning of a series of similar accidents involving the Ford Pinto. In the 1950s, the first Volkswagen Beetle arrived in the United States and quickly gained popularity. Competitors began to develop similar models. General Motors bet on the Vega, seeking to surpass Ford technologically, while AMC, with financial problems, launched the economical Gremlin, which was an unexpected success. Chrysler, for its part, decided to import cars from Mitsubishi and Hillman to compete. And Ford? It was late to develop a compact car due to internal debates. Finally, they launched an urgent program to create a car that would cost less than $2,000, equivalent to about $15,000 today. Ford rushed to develop the new model, reusing parts from its European operations, such as the rear axle from the Capri and the engine from the Anglia. To reduce weight, they trimmed the rear of the car, which would later prove to be a safety disaster. Instead of finishing the engineering before manufacturing, both processes were done at the same time, which caused problems and extra costs. Lakaka, then a Ford vice president, was adamant about any delays, and is blamed in part for the Pinto's catastrophic end. In 1971, just 23 months after the start of development, an astonishing 23 months for the time, the Ford Pinto hit the market weighing 1,949 pounds and priced at $1,919. But this would be just the beginning of 1,000 problems for Ford. What made it so prone to fire? The gas tank was right behind the rear axle, and in a collision, even at low speeds, the tank would be pushed against the protruding axle bolts, puncturing it and causing fires. Ford was well aware of the danger. From the first tests, it was clear that the Pinto was prone to catch fire in low-speed rear-end collisions. Although they evaluated solutions, such as a protective shield or a rubber tank bladder, Ford ruled them out because of cost and possible delays. But fires were not the Pinto's only problem. In addition to the fire risk, the Pinto had another serious problem. Its rear structure did not absorb impacts well, causing the floor to bulge and separate from the fenders, allowing flames to enter the cab. To make matters worse, the deformed chassis could block the doors, making egress difficult and complicating rescue in the event of a fire. As a result of the accidents, Ford faced 117 Pinto-related injury or death claims. The most prominent case was that of Richard Grimshoe, the 13-year-old passenger in the Lily Gray accident. In 1978, a jury awarded him $2.8 million in compensatory damages and $125 million in punitive damages, although the latter figure was reduced to $3.5 million. Following this verdict, Ford settled most of the cases out of court. And finally, in 1978, it agreed to recall more than 1.5 million cars for corrections to make them withstand a 30 miles per hour rear impact without fuel leaks.